top stratum corneum, it's the top layer of the epidermis. It's pushed up from the stratum basal. It becomes flattened and hardened. Keratinization. It's a word you need to underline. It causes the hardening and the waterproofing of your skin. All right, so keratinization occurs it begins in the stratum basal, and then up through the stratum corneum is where it becomes the thickest. And it is the thickest in the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet. It's the waterproofing that keeps our water inside our bodies. It prevents water loss and gain. When those stratum corneum cells lose all touch with the blood vessels, then they slough off and die. That's the reason we have so much skin that sloughs off and dies. Down below the epidermis is the dermis. That's what binds the epidermis to the subcutaneous. Remember, the subcutaneous is also the hypodermis. You've got dense, irregular connective tissue with collagenous and elastic fibers. Remember what that looks like? The dense, irregular connective tissue. And we said that was a binding agent. That's what's going to bind your epidermis down to the subcutaneous because you have so much. What kind of cells did we have up in the epidermis? Stratified squamous. So in the tissues that we're going to have down here are going to be the dense irregular. You've got a lot of blood vessels that supply nutrients and waste. This is where your nerve fibers are, sensory receptors and motor fibers to send and receive impulses. We look back here. Right in here you can have the ends of your nerves. They can be sense receptors, also these. It's the reason whenever you get the top layer of the epidermis scraped off down into your dermis, it is so incredibly sensitive. All right, but these can be touch receptors, and they can also determine temperature. They can be temperature receptors too. Hair shaft and sebaceous glands are deep within it, but remember they're covered by the epidermis. Your sweat glands are located here, and your sweat glands go all the way up through the epidermis. The lowest level is the hypodermis. That's your subcutaneous tissue. It lies beneath the dermis. It's found between skin and underlying structures. So if you've got muscles down below or other organs down below, that's what it's going to loosely attach to muscle. It may directly attach to bone. It's composed of loose connective tissue and adipose tissue. We look back up. Here's our adipose tissue here. All right. What is our adipose tissue for? Yeah, storage of energy and insulator. What happens if you get too much adipose tissue? You're obese. Okay, let's get on to some of the fun stuff. Okay, here we go. Accessory organs, the hair follicle. Hair follicles are present on every single surface except the palms, the soles, the lips, nipples, and external reproductive organs. It extends from the dermis, which contains the root, out to the surface of the epidermis. Remember, I've said this like 3 or 4 times now, it's epidermal cells. Epidermal cells. All right, the stratum basal that's going to be lining the hair follicles. They become keratinized and die. So epidermal cells are going to be excreted out. They die and they grow up and out of the hair shaft. So the hair shaft is actually dead cells. Okay, does that make sense? But they're heavily keratinized. Hair color is determined by the abundance of melanin. So however much melanin is being produced.
Mine now up to the spectrum of dark hair, black hair, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the opposite of my girl growth on there comes ahead.
Right. So you don't have very much melanin produced at all in the hair roots, in the epidermal cells. If you've got lots of pigments, if you have lots of melanin pigments, you'll get dark hair. If you have little, you get blonde. Absolutely none is white hair. Red hair has a little bit more special pigments. It's a combination of a couple of different pigments. All right, disease. Alopecia is the first one. That is hair loss or balding. You can have male baldness in androgenic alopecia, or you can have alopecia areata. Alopecia areata, you'll have sudden patchy hair loss, and it can occur in children and young adults. All right, this is hirsutism. That's excessive body and facial hair in women, and it's caused by excessive male hormones. Male and females both have testosterone and estrogen, but if you have more of one than the other when you're of the opposite sex, this is one of the problems that it can cause. This one's pretty interesting. There was an article done on it, hypertricosis, excess hair growth over all the body, especially the face. I'll look back up tonight to see if I can find on YouTube. This is a family that has this genetic disease, and it's passed on through the women. And so the entire family, over, I want to say about 3/4 of them end up having hair all over their bodies and stuff. They don't want to. His girlfriend finds this in the program that I watched, his girlfriend loves it. She thinks it's very sexy. So, and it's much better for a man to have it than it is for women, but several of his sisters also have it. I'm pretty sure it's a recessive gene. It's a recessive trait that comes about with it. That's all natural. Let's see. Go ahead. Okay.